Welcome to the Life Given Podcast, a Christian's guide to current events conversations. I'm Isaac Lopez. This week we have something new, something that we have not yet done before on the show. We actually interviewed someone, and as this is a podcast about cultivating conversation, I think it is only fitting that we finally get into an interview. So we will be interviewing Anna Green, the president for the local chapter for 40 Days for Life over in Pullman. And a little bit of insider's baseball. This took about 6 to 7 weeks to schedule, to coordinate, because we were going to do it at the beginning of 40 Days for Life, but it kind of fell through on both sides. And then coronavirus happened, and thankfully we were actually able to Zoom in and interview. So without further ado, let's jump in and enjoy the interview. So the first question I have is, could you give a brief summary for those listening on what 40 Days for Life is and what your position is within it, and then what's its goal, and then how did you start this chapter?
Oh boy, a loaded one to begin.
Yeah. Let's
go, yeah. I guess let's start with 3 years ago. I went to so I'm Catholic. I went to a big Catholic conference, and I got to listen to one of the founders of 40 Days for Life speak about abortion and like his experience in that ministry. And something that super struck me was his experience of like the conversion of abortion clinics.
Okay.
Going out of business or like ending doing abortions and how they have changed, and that's very fascinating. But so I got to hear him speak, and he is a super powerful speaker. His name's David B. Wright. He's just so passionate about this issue. It blew my mind. So he talked about 40 Days for Life and how he was a part of starting that. And I thought, holy cow, we need this over here in Moscow.
Right.
I knew that there was the abortion clinic, the Planned Parenthood in between Moscow and Pullman.
Okay.
Thinking, right in between two college campuses, this is not good. Like, this needs to stop. And so 40 Days for Life is something that he created with a group of guys to end abortion locally. Because I was like, there's a bunch of stuff that you can try and do in the government and like higher up levels, but if we really want to end this, we need to end it in our communities. Really making connections with the people around us.
Yeah.
And so that was their plan. There was an abortion clinic opening in College Station, Texas.
Okay.
And they didn't want that to open, so they sat down for an hour to pray about what they could do to end that. And they came up with 40 days of prayer and fasting.
Okay.
Physically outside the clinic,
right,
or outside where it was going to be built, to end abortion. And so it kind of just like evolved from there. Like, what do you do outside in the clinic? You pray, and then, start ministering to people who are out there who you see, talking to them, having conversations. So that's kind of how it evolved. And then other cities started asking them, hey, can we do this in our town? Will you help us? And so it just grew from there. So that's a little bit about 40 days. And
that's good to know. I didn't know like the background of 40 Days for Life. I obviously knew what its intent was, but that's really helpful to give it some context.
Yeah, super grassroots kind of a thing.
Yeah,
making connections and
Yeah, and then what was how did you what's your position within this chapter?
So I am the campaign leader of the Pullman chapter for 40 Days. And that's something that I've held for the last 3 years. This is only the third year that we have done it. So started in 2018 in the spring.
Wow.
So it's fairly new. We've just slowly been building up a team and
Yeah, because I keep getting I'll get the daily emails that you guys sent out during the campaign, and it looks like it just takes a lot of time and energy to be able to run something like that. Good way to hone your organizational skills, it seems like.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I've learned a lot about leadership and organization from all of this, and how to coordinate potentially hundreds of people for a vigil that hopefully in the future will run 24/7 for 40 days.
Wow.
That is a lot of coordination.
Yeah. So how do you, so obviously it's 24/7 for the AM hours, for the hours, in the wee morning hours. How were you able to find people that would be willing to stand outside there for that?
Yeah, so what I keep hearing is that those crazy midnight hours are not the hardest ones to fill.
Interesting.
However, currently our vigil is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're actually only doing a 12-hour vigil, just because we're still like gardening or garnering volunteers.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely really hard to get people to commit to this. It's like, I think it's scary for a lot of people. Okay, we're gonna go stand out in public outside an abortion clinic.
Right.
Yeah. So how do we do that? It's a lot of outreach, liking to speak at churches. Getting pastors involved is so powerful. Like, to see the leader, like your own spiritual faith leader,
right,
really supporting this, that's incredibly powerful.
Nice. So do you find is it mostly Christians that get involved for 40 Days for Life, or have you had some non-Christians who are pro-lifers that join the fight?
Yeah, it's definitely, so it's a Christian-based organization, and so we mostly have Christians out there. We're definitely open to anyone coming.
Right.
The intent is to have people out there praying, but I'm so happy to have others out there. Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, obviously everyone's aware of the time we're in with COVID-19 and how much it has impacted just everything. And you kind of got caught in the middle of that with, like 40 Days for Life got caught in the middle of that, because it started, I think the first couple of weeks was without any stay-at-home order in place, but I think you still had a week or two left when the stay-at-home order was put into place. So how did you guys adapt? Was it more praying from afar? Were you guys still able to stand out there 6 feet apart?
Yeah, it was both for a little while.
Okay.
People who weren't comfortable being out there would just pray from home, and then the official stay-at-home orders got issued, and actually it was right before the stay-at-home orders were issued. The president, Sean Carney, of 40 Days, he told us that our outside vigil was done. We weren't going to go be standing out there in community together because of the coronavirus.
Gotcha.
And so, so we want to follow him. And so it was right before the stay-at-home order that we actually had him come in and say, okay, we're going to be praying from home now just to keep people safe. Yeah, so that did put a damper on things, definitely. It's really, as scary as it sounds, it's really exciting being outside on the sidewalk. And I think a lot of people were pretty down about that we couldn't go out there and pray anymore.
Yeah. So being outside on the sidewalk, as you put it, like when was the first time that you did something like that? Even if it was before you were organizing this chapter, when was the first time you stood outside an abortion clinic, and what was how did you overcome like the uncomfortable feeling that a lot of people can have as they're standing out there for their first time?
Just being thrown into it, doing it again and again. The shame and the humiliation of being stared at by people.
Interesting.
You do it enough and it just starts washing off. Just like water off the back of a duck. You kind of just get used to it.
Right. Okay.
Sometimes it's funny when I bring people out there and they have this reaction of like this confusion or uncertainty or fear, and I'm completely oblivious to it at this point.
Yeah.
And sometimes I forget, okay, yes, this is different for people. This is a little bit scary, but it's totally okay. There's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. I mean, sure, people will honk at you, they'll give you the finger, but they also wave and are so kind. My absolute favorite response is a salute.
A salute. Interesting. Was it? Well, I mean, fellow soldiers in Christ, or was it an actual soldier that saluted you?
I am not sure, but it happened twice.
Really interesting. Like, was it a car or a pedestrian?
Yeah, just people driving by in their cars.
Okay. Wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, that is very, very supportive. I remember when there was the pro-life march here in Moscow. I think it was a few like a month ago. I can't remember exactly the date, but we got actually quite a bit of support from cars driving by.
Yes. Oh no, there is so much support in this community. One day I counted. I think it was on a particularly good day, but I counted the number of positive responses and negative responses that in an hour, and there were 16 waves, thumbs up.
Wow.
Positive responses, and there was only one negative response. Only one like middle finger, and that's not every day, right? Some days are better than others, but just goes to show like people in this community care.
Yeah,
they really do. We've had people, actually this happens quite frequently, but people will stop and thank us for being out there. Like they're driving by, and the road right there isn't very busy.
Yeah,
so they can just stop and they'll roll down the window and say like, thank you so much for being out here. Like, this is amazing. God bless. Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. No, so that it goes to show that if it's your first time out there, you're not alone. That's a good thing to remember, and that there's other people supporting you and the work that you're doing. But how do you get the people, because it does seem like there's quite a bit of support in the community, but how do you get the people that are willing to be supportive but may not be so excited to do the standing on the sidewalk bit, because it always seems, in my experience from that and doing other things, that a lot of people would cheer you on, but they may not be the person that will want to stand out there. So how do you think, what's the next step in getting those people to come out and standing in front of Planned Parenthood?
Yeah, that is all too true. People are so afraid of stepping out and like really putting a public face to what they believe in. The greatest thing that kind of changes people is just inviting them out there to go with you. I had a friend who never would have done this by himself, but he learned one day that there are a couple days that I would be out there in the evenings and there was no one out there with me, right? Because I would go out there all the time. And so he learned that and he thought, oh no, like you're not going to be out on the sidewalk where there's potentially, dangerous people walking around, or you're
a lot of crazy people.
Yeah, it's not that crazy actually. It's not that at all, I promise. But so he learned that and he thought, oh, I will definitely go out there and pray with you. And also, there have just been, young people at my church who want to go, and they're a little afraid. And so they're like, oh, is there anyone we can go with? And I'm like, yeah, come with me. I'm going this day, this time. You free?
Yeah.
And then it's so fun because you're building community with people and you're bringing them onto the sidewalk and really building them up to be able to do this themselves.
Yeah.
That's definitely the most powerful way I have found.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that definitely is part of my experience. Just when I've gone out there, I honestly haven't yet engaged in a conversation with anyone yet, from coming in and out. So what was have you had a conversation with someone driving by or walking in that definitely did not agree with your point of view? So could you tell me and tell the listeners what that's like and kind of the experience around that?
Yes, definitely. That is probably my greatest joy, just of being out on the sidewalk, is being able to talk to people.
Right.
This year in particular, we've had, or at least me personally, I've had so many more encounters than I ever had before. The most powerful one was with a woman who had recently had an abortion.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, just a young woman from Pullman. She came. All right, so I'm going to give you the whole story, but it's a little bit confusing. And then
we asked for it, so.
All right. Yeah, we asked for it. So we have a reporter who came out from the Argonaut, the U of I newspaper.
Right.
So we were talking to her, just me and one of my friends. We were out there. And this girl walks up with a tray of drinks from McDonald's.
Okay.
And she gives us hot chocolate and a coffee and a bunch of creamer and sugar, and some hand warmers because it's pretty chilly out there.
Yeah.
And I'm like half distracted because we're doing the interview, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like thank you so much. Side note, that is not uncommon. We have people drop off hot chocolate for us all of the time.
Okay, so go stand outside the Planned Parenthood for hot chocolate is what I'm hearing.
Yes, that's what you're hearing.
You heard it here first.
So context, right?
Right.
So she does this, and we're like, okay, thanks. Like, this is wonderful. Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm distracted. Mm-hmm. We're talking to this reporter. She, walks back down the sidewalk, goes to her car, which is kind of parked over by the old Shopco. And I don't really realize what she's doing, but then she comes back on the other side of the sidewalk and has a sign. And her sign is very clearly pro-choice. And it says,
interesting.
Ready to come out pro-choice, pray for me. And I was very confused by that. But after we had finished with this reporter, we just went over there and talked to her and learned that she had just recently had an abortion. And she just felt so strongly that she had to be out there for the women who were going into the clinic who might feel judged or harassed because of our presence there.
Right.
Our presence there peacefully praying for them. And she just felt so strongly that she had to be there to be a support for those women. I thought, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But what a beautiful statement she was trying to make, too, of being friends with us.
Yeah. Wow. That is very... That definitely is confusing because you always think of the other side as very unreasonable and very brutal, just because it's really easy to forget that they are people too, which is obviously they have committed a very, very horrible sin, but also to know that they're still capable of doing acts of kindness as well. I think that's a really good story to remember. So when you went over there and talked to her, was that something that do you find that you convince people like on the spot, or do you find that I need to pray about this person after we've talked to have their heart changed?
Yeah, it's definitely rare that you will find that you have a conversation and the person walks away changed. In this case, in this scenario, it was, I just went over there and tried to talk with her. She wasn't very open to talking.
Right.
So I just asked her questions, and she was sitting on the sidewalk, so I asked if I could sit next to her, and we just chatted for 10 minutes or so. And honestly, in the case of talking with a post-abortive woman, I was so struck by what she kept saying and hinting at, how she mentioned that, okay, if you had asked her when she was in junior high if abortion was bad, she would have said, yeah, abortion is murder. Like, you could never do this. And so in that, she kept something along the lines of that we were calling her a murderer. And that was how she felt so strongly, that we were calling her a murderer. And I was trying to explain to her, like, no, like, we do not believe you are a murderer. Like, we do not believe that, like, you are condemned, right? Like, yes, there is sin and there is pain, and abortion is 100% morally wrong and an evil. But that does not mean that you are evil. That does not mean that you are condemned. Like, God's mercy is so much greater than that. So, in the context of, like, talking to people who have suffered this, was very a part of their lives, you really just have to speak into that, like, just being human and loving them where they are. And sometimes it's a really hard thing to do. You just want to, like, take them a little bit and say, no, like, there is love and mercy. But they can't quite receive that.
Yeah. And obviously I don't want to turn this into a debate, because honestly, I think all of that is true, that God's love covers that all, right? And there's forgiveness as long as you repent, right? As long as you do repent. And I think
in order to repent, you have to forgive yourself first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
and accept, and well, yes, repent, like this is wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Like I see that, and then okay, I forgive myself, and then let God forgive you.
Right. Yeah. I think I was recently, I saw just a friend's post on Facebook, and I thought it was really good. There was something along the lines of saying that just saying a sin is a disease of the heart can sometimes allow you to excuse your sin. To say that it's like almost like it's this second person within you that you don't have control of, but realizing that God calls us to put on the new man, right? To take on his love and Christ's righteousness. And so, I would probably still call abortion murder, but also willing, like saying there is love and forgiveness. So
yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like yes, abortion is murder. Okay, yes, I would say that.
Okay, cool.
Just like in the context of you're talking to a woman who is just on this, who is condemning herself, like it's so hard to just like they can't take straight theology, to be honest.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing that I here in Moscow, there's definitely a very very bright and vibrant Christian faith, and there's a lot of people that are gung ho about this is my theology and this is what I believe the Bible says, and then they'll go on and talk about, okay, abortion is murder, we should like prosecute it as such, we should change the laws to be able to defend the unborn, which I'm all in favor of. But I think stories like this can really help those people to see, okay, how do you communicate that to an unbeliever or communicate that to someone who has gone through it, because it's really important to be able to cultivate a merciful side of you, right, to make sure that you guys are knowing how to communicate that. So anyway, just kind of a side tangent. Just wanted to...
you can shout theology and you can shout morals at people, but if you're not going to touch their heart, they're not going to be able to hear you.
Yeah. Good stuff, Anna. I've got another question just along the lines of when there are you can go out there and have a great interaction like that, where you can put a name to a prayer and you can pray for someone that goes through that. But there are going to be times when no one drives by, or there's only one person coming out, and that's an employee. So how do you fill the times of quiet around the abortion clinic?
Prayer is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, and I was wondering, do you ever try to get, if there's large groups, is there topics of conversation that you'll bring up to maybe help prepare them for conversations they may have, or an experience they may have with the abortion clinic, people that go in and out of the abortion clinic?
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're talking about is a little bit of maybe sidewalk counseling, or kind of the apologetics behind why we believe what we believe and how to communicate that.
Yeah.
So a lot of what 40 Days for Life does specifically, our mission is prayer. Number one goal is to end abortion and get as many people involved as we possibly can to do the simplest things, to stand out there and pray. And you really don't need a lot of formation and knowledge and apologetics to be able to do that, right? You're just going to go stand out there and pray. So that's 40 Days for Life. We're hoping in the future to do sidewalk counseling, which is an actual course that you can go through to be able to talk to these women or talk to the workers inside. But again, that's still just meeting them as humans and talking to them as people to lead them out. I have done a lot of work with just talking to people about like the apologetics of abortion. So I was the president of the Students for Life Club at U of I, and that's a ton of what we do, like training, equipping people to be able to talk about these issues. And so I think that is very, very powerful and very good to be able to do. Although the heart of the issue still is prayer, and so is love.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's That's good stuff. And just as we kind of come to a conclusion here, I don't want to go too long and take up more of your afternoon.
Yeah.
But where can people go to find out more about 40 Days for Life? Because I know it just ended on Easter. And so there's another year or so before it comes back around. Where can people find out where they can get involved and what it is?
Definitely. So you can check out our local website, 40daysforlife.com/Pullman, and that should keep you updated about when and where and a little bit of the logistics of how we run our local campaign. Okay. And then just the 40daysforlife.com website in general has more information if you kind of want to look up a little bit more, maybe the story behind how they started or learn more about it. And if you're a super podcaster, as listening to this, maybe 40 Days for Life actually started a podcast.
Really?
And they're pretty good. I would recommend them.
Okay.
I think my favorites are probably, the podcasts they do right before the campaign starts on fasting and stuff, and really diving into the sacrifice and the hard things. Those are super fun. But yeah, I would recommend that. And if you're someone who is interested in more the apologetics, dialoguing with people about abortion, I would check out the Equal Rights Institute.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of them before, Isaac.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, they're a phenomenal institute. They're largely they're focused on equal rights as the main basis of defending the unborn. So they're less faith-based and more just being able to dialogue with people of any faith or no faith in general about why we should care about this issue and how to articulate it well. So they're also a really great resource.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. Those are definitely, and I'll be sure to check out the podcast because I didn't know that there was a 40 Days for Life podcast. So I'll dig into that and recommend anyone else to listen to them as well.
Definitely.
So yeah, thanks for once again being the first person to be interviewed for the podcast, and it'll be this week's show. So thanks so much.
I'm excited. I'll have to tune in.
So once again, thank you so much, Anna Green, for joining the podcast. That was very, very enjoyable first interview, and I hope you guys took from it as much as I did. I think there's just so many stories and so much that you can gain from her experience that I think it will prove to be very helpful. One of the things that actually kind of caught my attention as I listened to it for a couple times in post-production is just the fact that there's this basic truth that you have to be able to balance knowledge with love. And I don't think that you have to make any concessions on either side, but it's really easy to go too far to one side of the road, right? To one ditch. It's good to know your stuff, whatever it may be. Okay. So whether it is trying to talk to someone who has had an abortion, like that story that Anna shared with us, and all of the apologetics, all the things that you need to be able to preach to them, but then it's another thing to actually practice it. And that's, I think it's actually a very good time to practice that just during quarantine, during the coronavirus, because there's just so much at stake right now with the economy, with the lockdown continuing on here in Idaho. It's been extended to the end of April. And to be honest, I found that I was getting frustrated over the last week with the leadership of this nation. And I want to get into that next week's show. But just as one of the takeaways, I think it is still good to remember that head knowledge is good and it's very necessary, but you need to be able to balance that with how do you communicate and win someone's heart, right? And I think that that's at the very center of what a Christian is called to do. We are called to go and spread the word all over the world, right? And something like 40 Days for Life is really getting at the heart of it, because you need to be able to have the head knowledge, and you know that you have to go and challenge people in a very, very uncomfortable situation. But you've got to balance that with how do I communicate? How do I communicate the truth that I hold and know to be the truth? How do I go and minister to the hurting and to the afflicted, and also to people that just do not want to see it the way that you do, and you have to be persistent and you have to pray. So that's really my takeaway from this week. It was a wonderful time interviewing Anna, and I hope that you got as much out of it as I did. So, in conclusion, stay tuned. There's a lot more coming. As the summer approaches and the warmer weather comes, there will be more and more content rolling out as I figure out a bit more what I'm doing here. I want to have more interviews and I want to have more shows. So, if these interviews are going to go long, I want to keep the show shorter during another time. So, whether that's a midweek show, but there is a way that you can support the show, and that is just by going to the Life Given website, and I'll link to this in below. But if you go to the Life Given website and go to the tab that says Community, you can sign up to and join a group there that is specifically for the Life Given podcast. And there you will get a lot of all the resources that we publish all in one place. We're on different platforms, whether it's Spotify, Anchor, YouTube. There are different things that we upload that I upload to different platforms. So for YouTube, sometimes I upload something slightly different than the show that I'm uploading to Anchor. So you'll get all of that there in one place, but also that's a place that you can get in touch with me a little bit easier. That's a place that you can go and ask questions that you want asked on during interviews, and that I'll be conducting throughout the summer, and things that you want to hear discussed on the show, or that you just want to discuss with me, and build a conversation like that. And I think we're getting to a point that we can have a lot of those conversations have a place for that. So go to the Life Given website, the Life Given News website, and you will find that tab there. And that's a way that you can show support for the show, but also to really build conversation around the podcast. Once again, remember that the life that you have been given and the life that you have received includes every area of life. Why should current events be the exception? God bless.